Here we go. Hey, Josh, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hey, Brian. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Josh Bilo. I've been in the technology and software industry for about 26 years. So as you could tell by some of the grays, I'm currently with a company called Redpoint Global, and have been there about a year and a half now.
Any stress in sales? Have you noticed that? Any pressure? Any correlation?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of stress in sales.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's really managing the stress that I've found has been working, but tons of stress.
And how'd you get into sales? Was that the natural progression with a psychology degree, or?
It was, and that's kind of an interesting story because I'm a psychologist every day. Believe me, I got into sales. Actually, my grandfather always said, who passed away many, many years ago. He was an insurance salesperson on the south side of Chicago, door to door, and he would say, "Josh, go into sales, not psychology. Best way to earn a living is sales, 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 sales." And after being beat over the head several times, I went into sales. Never looked back, man. Never looked back.
And what you like about it when you first started?
What I really liked is, especially early on when I was young, I would be able to go into these meetings and just really learn a lot about companies. I think it was really curiosity about going to a different company all the time, being a different business problem. And it just became kind of fun as opposed to a job.
So you had an interest in business, or you had an interest in making money, or
Well, it's funny, both.
yeah.
I was, it's kind of changed over the time, but I think more interest in business and making money. I think the business aspect of it was fascinating. It was like getting an MBA and having somebody pay for it, and the making money was great. Being able to make money off of selling.
And did it come to you naturally, or was it a painful process, or?
Uh, the natural selling capabilities was, I could say go back to natural, right? I think it was more innate. The challenge was it was difficult to adjust to process, really, and having a process early on. I was more what they used to call, piss and vinegar, right?
Yeah, lots of
You would just
energy.
lots of energy, and I even have a really good story about it. I could tell you if you want me to share, but it was just really energy, and I was out there just really showing and telling as opposed to listening at the time.
And that does create a lot of beginner's luck in sales, just the sheer passion and enthusiasm and the energy level. Did that dissipate after a while, or did you find out you were working really hard and not closing deals?
Yeah, I think the working really hard and not closing deals came naturally. You talk about stress in sales, and that becomes very stressful because you really find it's kind of dumb luck initially because you're working really hard, you're passionate, and you're like, why did they like me?
Yeah.
It was all about me, and that was eventually it changed. It had to.
Yeah, because I see a lot of young, and I was probably one of them, that you have that enthusiasm and you think just because you had a great meeting where people were vibing off your energy and they saw the possibility and they looked like they were going to take a next step, but then it just never goes anywhere. Was that
Yeah.
something you experienced?
Many times,
Yeah.
and that's why we say, somebody once told me, you got to get the grays before you could really get into, start selling a lot, and it wasn't just gray here. It was part of really understanding, hey, there's got to be a different approach.
That's it, because I see people always putting out, this type of salesperson is the best type, or this approach is the best approach. And, I don't think it's just one little thing. I think that the strongest correlation is years of experience, the gray hair, the wrinkles, you know, the social issues that, really have people learn the hard parts, because since it's so long, it's not a single call like selling a car. There's so many meetings and so many variables, so many things that can either go wrong or stall a deal, that you have to have seen these things, and then you have to internalize them and care about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's it, right? Internalizing them and caring about them. I'll just a quick story on that is I was with a company called Platinum Technology, big company here in
Yep.
Chicago for many years. And once they got acquired by a company called Computer Associates, I was like, now what? So I went on all these interviews, and I interviewed with a guy, and he's like, you did a great job, great presentation. I really appreciate it, but I can't hire you. I said, what do you mean? I thought I did a great job, great presentation. He goes, you don't understand. It's like Michael Jordan. He takes free throws, or he took shots that over and over again, he's done it.
Yeah.
He goes, I have to hire somebody a little more seasoned. You just haven't done it enough. I was a little discouraged then because I'm like, well, but I've sold stuff, so
Right.
it's very similar.
And that's it, because also a lot of people get into a big brand company at the right time,
Yeah.
and they kind of associate it that it's them and not the brand. And sometimes it's them, but a
Yeah.
lot of times it's the brand. You know?
Yeah. 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 I've seen a lot of that as well, right? I've been with small companies, large companies, across the board. And now I'm with a mid-sized company that we're doing well. But, and I think it's interesting because I think things have changed because it's not about the brands anymore. It's not about the huge companies. It's about that salesperson being able to effectively move along something as
Yeah.
well as being trusted. I think trust is so important today.
And how do you create that or build it?
Yeah, part of those are the gray hairs. It's partly because I've been doing what I've been doing for such a while that I'm able to understand the customer. This goes back to psychology of selling,
Yeah.
right? Being able to understand them and really, really internalizing and being curious. That's the way you're in the trust, and then being able to deliver something to them, being able
Yeah.
to share with them, hey, I could help you with this. We could help you with this. And here's how we've done it. And I've done it in the past. And I think that just takes experience.
And were you always curious, a curious guy, an inquisitive person, or?
Always curious. And I
Yeah.
think curiosity was one of my greatest assets in selling
Yeah.
because I always wanted to know. And that piss and vinegar and that excitement, I have to tell people, don't take it the wrong way, because I'm actually really curious what you do for a living. And once you kind of break through that, and it's not really, it's not selling anymore. It's just learning,
Conversing. Yeah.
conversing.
Right.
And yeah, that's another thing, conversing, right? Because most people forget to converse. We're just people having a conversation. Most people just want to talk.
Right. Because you really can't come up with good questions unless you are curious.
Right. That's why this whole thing with the elevator pitch is kind of funny because people will always ask me, they're going, well, so what's your elevator pitch? And I say, I don't know. What do you want to accomplish? I go, because
Yeah.
I can take it any different way you want to go, but I'm not just going to tell you this whole story. It's really the elevator pitch is about how we can help three different ways of things that you might have an issue with.
And that is crazy, because I think the best way to become good at sales is to be curious, which creates great questions.
Exactly.
And it, what everybody else does is just the opposite. Elevator pitch, value proposition, messaging. How often have you heard, oh, let's spend a day on our go-to-market messaging?
We did it all the time 10 years or 15 years ago. We
Right.
spent QBRs just on practicing go-to-market messaging.
And
You would sit on the phone and do that all the time.
right. But if the other person doesn't have any interest yet, doesn't trust you yet, they're not going to believe you, and they're not going to care.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think people today more than ever, I start every conversation with a simple thing, right? And, I don't want to share this with too many people, which is going to be shared anyway, but
I won't tell anyone.
I always say, listen, I've seen way too many sales cycles where people have lied to you. I won't do that. We won't do that. And one of the edicts of our company today is we basically cut top down, tell the truth, right? Be honest with the customer and tell them exactly what we can and can't do, and that's it. And we deliver on that promise. And there's still, there used to be a saying, which I always hated, the best liar wins, right?
Oh
It was a
God, yeah.
terrible saying. It was a terrible saying. And people would do that. And then the customer, and it sucked for the customer that bought it, because now they're sitting there going, holy cow, what do I need to do now?
Right, because they're going to find out misrepresentations, misleading statements, or blanket lies anyway.
Yep.
And when they do, the trust is not only eroded, it's reversed. They don't trust you.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can never really build that back up, because right. Any shortcut. And that is just so wrong. Because I had a manager who used to say, just fake sincerity. That's what a great salesperson.
Right.
And I
We
go, if
watch
you
too
have
many
to
movies.
fake it, there's something wrong.
Exactly.
And I think people can just sense that very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think made you curious? Was this from childhood up, or was it an epiphany in school, or?
Yeah, I was never a great student, so I had to get good at something. So I was more of a street fighter, as I
Yeah.
call it. So what made me curious is, I was brought up with a father that has 3 different degrees and MBA from University of Chicago Booth, an engineer and very
Wow.
analytical. I didn't have conversations like normal people. My conversations were over business and math, and I
Yeah.
sucked at math. So I had to go back to having conversations around business and being curious until later on in life, he would ask me questions about how to solve a problem. So,
And what was your most difficult sale? I mean, you've been at a lot of great companies, a lot of ones I know. I know
yeah,
Platinum and Exact
yeah,
Target, PK Ware. Wow. Yeah, I was at
yeah. Well,
Roadwave.
yeah, you just actually named the most difficult sale was PK Ware. For those of you that don't know, for you, Brian, PK Ware founded PK Zip, the
Yeah.
Zip platform, right? And you think about selling, it was security software. We transformed the company, or they transformed the company into a security zip file that can be transported anywhere, whether it's mainframe or other. The challenge is people weren't really buying security. You know, we we call people and they would say, well, we have insurance policies that cover that, and your software is not worth it. They would do those things if, and CROs would talk to you, or chief security officer, would talk to you, but however, they weren't buying anything.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult place to be in at the time.
And how'd you work around that?
Well, we transformed it more to sell into the business.
Yeah.
So we would find a niche for us of where they had to transmit data, but they had to get the data somewhere, right? And off that mainframe to something else. So it became more of a data movement tool
Yeah.
for the business. And the security kind of came with it. And that's how we were really able to transform.
And which sale did you like the most?
Which sale? Now, you're talking a type of sale, company,
Yeah,
market?
the market, the
I
company.
tell you, it goes back to, it's funny, goes back to Platinum, but where I'm at today. Right now, I love what I do.
Yeah.
I think I'm just in such a tremendous spot because we can actually deliver software that actually works, and includes that data warehousing that I learned early on in my career. So now I'm able to combine orchestration and data to be able to deliver for customers. So right now, this is definitely my favorite. But it's really in the MarTech space, the orchestration space, that data space, I love.
And who's your primary point of contact?
It's interesting. We're across the board,
Yeah.
right? And so you talked about, I think in one of your presentations was, mapping things out, right? Without that map, tell me how to get to the highway, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Instead of going street to street, hoping you're going in the
exactly.
right general direction. Yeah.
Exactly. What I found is you find a project, you find where they're doing something, where there's money, momentum, a project that's
Yeah.
going on in the organization. And the contacts have changed because the level of contact now, I'm seeing a lot of directors are making decisions with vice president approval.
Yeah.
So whether it's director of digital, director of orchestration, director of analytics, they're bringing in others to that conversation.
So you're selling to the business unit side, not the IT operations or
We're
development?
selling to both,
Yeah.
right? And I used to call it the tension of opposites. I think both sides are finally coming together. And I always ask, that's a funny thing, because I always ask the customers, I say, well, so tell me, do you get along with IT if I'm talking to the business? And the IT, I go, do you get along with the business? And they laugh. They go, now we do,
You have
and
to.
you
Yeah.
have to, right? And
Yeah.
I think the business side, we're buying things, and that's where they got burnt, and now IT's involved, which I'm happy, right? I'm extremely happy to have IT in the picture because they're able to call, BS, right? And
Yeah.
say, hey, this isn't going to work, so there's
But do you start with one and then move to the other, or do you start with both simultaneously?
It depends, right? So I
On
don't
who
think there's a
cares?
straightforward answer. It doesn't matter to me where to start.
Yeah,
And I think that's where it comes to understanding IT and understanding business. You have to understand both,
yeah.
right? And I think in today's market more than ever. So I start at either place to me doesn't matter.
And what's the biggest challenge? Do they understand the problem, or do they not know who you are? Or
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is understanding the problem in a lot of cases, because in the marketplace that I'm in today, a lot of people talk about a lot of different things and
everything?
marketing. Everybody's saying they do everything, right? So it's really ferreting out, asking them the questions. What does this mean to you? You said this word. Help me understand how you're defining that word.
Yeah.
And once you get down to it, then you could figure out, where that problem is.
And what type of deal size are these? 50, 100,
Uh,
150K?
they're greater.
Are
Yeah,
they?
yeah. I
Cool.
can't discuss. Yeah, I can't. I really can't discuss the deal sizes just because we're a privately held company. But
Sure.
yeah, greater.
Multiple six figures, that
Yeah,
ballpark.
yeah.
And how long do they take?
Uh, Anywhere from 9 to 12 months.
Wow.
Sometimes 6 months if it's if you find somebody that's really in need of something. And I'm finding today more than ever that companies are fast tracking some things. So
Yeah.
I think the sales cycle's shortening a little bit because when they find and identify that, like to use pain, but that business problem,
That they need to
they're
solve.
going full force ahead, and they're finding the companies that do it. There's not a lot of, there might be 3 companies involved, and that's it. You
And
know,
do they turn into those classic beauty contests where they give you each a data demo, they give you each, some problems to solve, a bake-off type thing, and don't
yeah.
tell you anything, but
Some
want you to
do and
jump?
some do and some don't, right?
Yeah.
Those that do that, I avoid. I basically say, look, that's not the way we work. You specifically help me. If you're doing this, there's something going on behind the scenes, and
Already.
selected
Yeah.
somebody else already. So, I try not to get involved in those. And some companies do. I think there's less and less of that, believe it or not, of these bake-offs and beauty contests. I think there's more. They find a few companies, they talk to them, they bring IT in, they bring the business in, and they identify the problem, they identify the company could solve the problem, and the company they trust and believe in, and then they move along with them,
Yeah.
as opposed to too much of the beauty contest.
And then how do you differentiate yourself as a rep in that type of situation? Is it because you know more about the problem? Is it that you're more curious? Or is it that you have a better solution for it?
Yeah, I don't think it's just me. You know, I could identify myself and differentiate.
You're just
I,
lucky?
I'm just totally lucky, right, man? What I do is I organize the team, and I've always done this. And over the past 10 years, I've really honed that skill of organizing and orchestrating the right people
Yeah.
to have a full discussion with the client. So I really believe that they believe in my team. They trust me, but I bring in the people that need to uh, talk to them at a deeper level. So
And is that a sales engineer, an SE, or?
it can be. So it's between SE, it could be a solutions person, an architect. Our CTO gets involved a lot of times and has the conversations. So it matters who you're talking to and kind of what audience it is.
Yeah. And where did the deals get stuck? Since it's a large, long-term deal, I-
Yeah.
more often than not, it's not that they don't need you, want you, or can afford you. It just gets sidelined or deprioritized or marginalized.
Yeah. I think today more than ever, deals are getting sidelined a little bit just in the environment today. We got to accept that and appreciate it. But it all depends, Brian. Some deals just, I don't believe they do nothing, but I believe they run out of time to do
Yeah.
something, you know, or they go with somebody else. And, but I like to be upfront with companies. I'll tell companies, hey, look, we're not in the right place. If something's not really driving this, we can't keep talking. There has to be something driving it. And if there is
Yeah.
something driving it, in my world, it's a specific business problem
Yeah.
that they're trying to solve. And if that pain, really, I think it's this pain that still exists, and we're not selling an aspirin, it's likely not to die on the vine. It might
Right.
get prolonged. I mean, things slip and things happen, but it usually doesn't die.
Right, because in the multiple hundred thousands, it's more than an aspirin. You're doing an operation,
Yes, we're
and the
doing an
outcome is
operation.
great, but the fear factor and the resistance, you know.
Absolutely. And I always say the operation was a success, but the patient made it. In our world, the patient made it. It's not
Yeah.
that they died, they're going to make it, and we're
Yeah.
going to help you with that.
And what's your magic as far as getting it done? Is it getting to the right people within the client, getting to power, not just dealing with the people who like the technology and the usage of it?
Yeah, I don't think the power thing works anymore.
No?
I think no, I don't think getting to the CMO of a company or the CTO or CIO of the company works like it might have used to, right? I think it's really getting to everybody on that team, the directors, and each individual, that makes sense for the project to drive it. Now, there has to be a process, right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that was pounded into me throughout my entire career was process. And there's got to be an outcome to that process. So I've really kind of kept it really process oriented, and they have to be moving through those steps in order for me to keep talking to them.
Yeah. And when you get what isn't overtly positive is covertly negative,
Yes, yes.
where they're not responding to you
I
or
like
they're
them to be very negative with me. I like them to respond, or I don't like them to. You mean overtly positive in terms of the client or me? Which one?
well, if somebody isn't proactively responding to you, asking you questions,
Yeah,
showing interest, cooperating with deadlines,
there's a problem,
that's
right?
covertly
Yeah,
negative.
yeah. They're
Right.
covertly negative. Got it.
Right.
Um,
Because no one likes to deliver bad news. No one's going to call you up and say, "Hey, Josh, we're losing interest in this,"
yeah, 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 yeah.
or we're not going to do it. Or
And you have to drive it out of them in a lot of cases,
yeah,
and I always say in my experience, you're not talking to me because something's either going on or something's slipping. Either way, just send me an email,
right.
or call me, and a lot of times it's, hey, I've been sick, or hey, Josh, other things got in the way. This is still a priority. Or you're right, we went with somebody else. And then it's like, good, at least you told me something,
Yeah.
so, but that,
And
that, that does happen.
and the end users of this are in the marketing group.
They're in both the marketing and technology groups. So because we deal with data,
Yeah.
so we're taking a lot of different data sources and taking all those inputs of data and doing something with the data from a matching and hygiene and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it could be in any group because customer services use data, right? We're really this whole brain of orchestration of that, all the data, and then we do something with it. We orchestrate it to
Yeah.
whatever channel. So I try to tell people anywhere you have an orchestration and data problem, we fit in
Yeah. And
very well.
how much of your business is inbound for you personally versus you outbound finding it?
Well, fortunately, we have a good BDR organization,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's either through them. We have a lot of inbound. I think, I think in today's market things have changed a little bit. And our BDRs work really hard and they do outbound and they find stuff. But I also believe that a lot of companies, if they're in market from whatever it is, they read a white paper, they look at your website, they do those things and signals along the way
Yeah.
that
Intent.
there's
Yeah.
something going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you been able to really diagnose what to work on? Because you only need a handful of deals to crush your number, right?
Yeah.
Ha-
Yes. Yes. But that it becomes a challenge because I've diagnosed what to work on specifically. I eliminate deals early on in the process. When I first started with this company, I was going after everything and anything just so I could learn what worked and what didn't work. And I think that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Lose some of the smaller ones, the things that don't work, and so you can go after the bigger ones. But yeah, you really have to identify. But you also have to think 2 quarters out and 3 quarters out, right? So it's kind of you can't slow down, even though you have this number and
Yeah.
feel confident. You still have to kind of keep the gas on.
And how would you characterize you? Are you like the elephant hunter type of person, or are you sounds more like the process, take the deals that have a good feel to it, work them through a process, or just close whatever you can as fast as you can?
It's interesting. What I do is I try to accelerate the process.
Yeah.
right? So there is a process in elephant hunting, so I am elephant hunting. But look, if somebody called and they wanted to buy a smaller deal and they wanted to do it in a month, I'll do that too. you
Yeah.
know, so I don't think there's really a kind of one size fits all. But I think you got to have a mixture of some mid-size and some larger deals as well.
Yeah, that's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was a manager said, look, there's the elephant hunter reps and they do well if they catch the elephant.
Yeah,
And then there's the one who chase every little deal possible. And then there's the person who does both, who really looks at deals, finds the ones that can and will close, focuses on them,
yeah,
and gets them done.
yeah. That's exactly it.
And as a manager, a manager wants that dependable person, the one
Yeah,
that's going to be there every quarter,
yeah, yeah.
not just when the elephant comes
You
in.
know, I think from a management perspective, when I was leading people, I wanted everyone to be successful, but there's also a number to hit. So it's like also it doesn't matter who's successful as long as as long as you're hitting
You
that
are.
number. As long as it kind of goes up the channel. But you want everyone's dependable. But in larger deal sizes, I think you got to look at it from a yearly perspective, right? I mean, you want somebody to be dependable every quarter, but is that doable and is it sustainable?
Yeah.
Quarter in, quarter out with large deals.
And are you a people manager now, or are you individual
No, I'm
contributor?
an individual contributor, so I went back to individual contributing. I have a son that's going to college uh, in the fall, hopefully. And I realized I need to get back into sales and kind of crank up the
The income, the
the
W-2.
income, but also be responsible for myself.
Yeah. And did you like one more than the other?
I liked them both. I found out though, as leading, I was doing a lot of selling.
Yeah.
And I think I more almost I'm effective at both. I like doing both. I like selling though. I love selling.
Yeah. A little bit more control over it.
A lot more control. A lot more control. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people do that. I did it both back and forth a couple of times, and I was pretty much happier when I was a rep.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I think a lot of people are. I've seen a lot of my friends that went into leadership went back into selling. And I talked to a lot of even senior vice presidents. I say, geez, I wish I was selling again. I want to be back out, at that client, that curiosity that we all have. I
yeah.
want to be in front of the customer.
And what do you think, or what do you wish you learned in your 20s that you know now?
How to be more conversational
Yeah.
uh, in my sales style. I think that's very important.
Better questions versus
Better
statements.
better questions, treating them just like, hey, we're talking as friends. Let's just figure it out. I wish I knew that then. I was just more statements, statements, question. It was very inquisitive the wrong way. So,
Right. Yeah. You doing too much of the talking
yeah,
instead of the listening. Yeah.
yeah.
And how would you coach, or how did you coach reps? Because I'm sure you saw them anywhere from rookie to expert.
You know, I, so I would try to get out with the reps and just show them how I do it and then listen to them do it. And
Yeah.
then after the meeting say, all right, here's what you did well, here's what you didn't do well, let's practice this, let's do this. It was just I was trying to ramp them up to all the hard knocks I've taken and not to make the same mistakes. But I would let them make those little mistakes
Yeah.
and then jump in and catch them when they fell.
And what are the kind of the big strategic mistakes? Is it like working on the wrong deals, talking to the wrong people, happy ears?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistakes are all the above.
Yeah.
But it's really the happy years. I would sit on calls where people were forecasting stuff and go, yeah, this deal's never going to come in. They would just talk and talk and talk and talk and say, oh yeah, I had a great meeting. I always hate the term, we had a great meeting.
Yeah.
What,
They
what
love
does
us.
that mean? They love us. It was an awesome meeting, man. I go, you're not getting that deal, dude. I want them to hate you a little bit. I don't want them
Hate
to
you a little bit, be asking for
something.
something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Hmm.
And where do you see you taking your career?
I'm just going to keep on selling, at least for the near term. I love what I do right now, and if something comes along in many years to come, I would look at it. But right now, I like selling.
And how about like when you're looking through somebody else's forecast, what red flags are you looking to see whether that deal's real or the timing is real?
Yeah, when they say a really large company is going to close in 2 months,
Yeah.
you know, we're forecasting this deal. It's a big company, but they're going to close. They're excited about our technology. They have a pain, and they say they're going to get this done in 2 months. There's no way.
Yeah. And how about as far as them talking to the right people within the account about the right things?
Well, I actually think it's more along the lines of the communicating. Right?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't talked to them in a while. Do you have somebody that's giving you insight and insider information? And when I say insider, I mean knowing what's going on in the company,
Company.
right? In
Yeah.
terms of the deal, in terms of competitors. If they're not saying any of that stuff, it's probably not your deal.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, I really enjoyed the conversation, Josh. Where can people go to follow you?
It's Sales Profit on Twitter and on LinkedIn. They can connect with me on LinkedIn, and they can also find me at Redpoint Global.